Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and this week that a lot of people received the disappointing news about Tamir Rice and the officer who was responsible for shooting him, Timothy Loman. He wasn't even indicted. A lot of people were surprised by this. A lot of people are very upset. I know I'm upset. And another person who I know has a lot to say about this is Mr. Ken Williams. Ken is a former detective at the Brockton Police Force in Massachusetts. He's retired since, but he's now doing lots of great work in terms of helping people to kind of deal with these sorts of issues. So I want to ask my brother, how you doing today, man?
How you doing, Doctor? Thank you for having me tonight.
I'm glad you're here, man. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for taking the time. You had some concerns about this non-indictment. It seems that there's a frustration that when a black person is killed, by the cops, it just seems that their ability to indict is almost gone, and the statistics flip on their heads because. From what I understand, indictments occur almost all the time in other cases, but when it comes to cops, it seems that there's no justice. And the shooting of Tamir Rice was on video, so a lot of people kind of upset about that. As a former police detective, what did you see when you watched the video of Tamir Rice being shot?
What I saw in the video was clear negligence on the part of police. Police officers responded to a 911 call from a citizen regarding the child possibly having the possession of a firearm. So police have a duty to respond. The problem became in the response in how they closed the gap on Tamir Rice. They created their own exigency. They created the safety issue, and that is what escalated this, I believe, to a critical shooting incident where we have Tamir Rice, who committed no crime because he possessed a pellet gun, but in the state of Ohio, there's no regulations that restrict children or adults from having possession of a pellet gun. He's a juvenile. Police claim that they believed in their investigation leading up to the shooting that he was an adult. Um, and at the same time, we have a child that looks like he's trying to demonstrate to police he has nothing on him that's going to harm them, but yet and still he's shot and killed.
Well, first thing I want to tell people is that we're having some weird technical difficulties with the Skype connection. So if you hear the background noise, please bear with us. We decided to push through it anyway because we want you to get the information, but we hear this noise as well. So sorry about that. But what I want to say is, it did seem to me that the shooting didn't make sense. The non-indictment made even less sense. And so it kind of makes it hard for anybody to make sense of this justice system. What's it really going to take for us to get to the point where things happen with police that just don't baffle us in this way. I mean, Tamir Rice was a kid. He was 12 years old. He didn't deserve to be shot. He wasn't hurting anybody, and there's no penalty for killing him. Um, you know, what can we do? I mean, how do we even move forward from this?
Well, I think we need to focus on Tamir Rice because Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old child, has no prior record as far as we know. He wasn't committing a crime in the state of Ohio. He was in a park where he was playing, albeit with a pellet gun, but nonetheless, it wasn't a crime to go and have a pellet gun. He's a kid. He's 12 years old, playing by himself, and when people pass by, he might be playing with them. The problem with the Tamir Rice case that I can see that's such a bright line is that police, when we go through and we parse out what they admit to publicly, they admit that they got this completely wrong. He's not a criminal. He possessed no gun. He didn't try to go and do anything because, in Tamir Rice's mind, he couldn't harm anybody with what he possessed. It wasn't real. So the police, by closing the gap on Tamir Rice, instead of maybe taking an approach to either have some distance to allow themselves to interact and have a conversation with Tamir Rice, they chose to close the gap on a person they thought was armed with a gun, which increased the risk to Tamir's life being lost here. And that's negligence. One of the officers is a rookie. The other officer is a veteran. The veteran is driving the vehicle, should know better than close the gap on somebody that he suspects they're investigating may possess a firearm. Police claim all the time that they know about this 21 gap rule if someone has a knife and how someone can be deadly with a knife. It makes no sense to close the gap within feet if someone has a freaking gun.
Wow. So you're seeing that, or what it sounds like you're saying is that it's not just Loman, the rookie, who made the mistake. It was also the veteran who was driving the car. That they never should have approached Tamir before all this went down.
They can approach, but what they should have did was had distance. If there was distance, so they can then ask Tamir to present himself, show what he has, slow this thing down. Tamir Rice would be alive today. If the 911 dispatcher had dispatched to the police that the 911 caller said twice he thought that the gun that Tamir Rice had was fake and that he was a juvenile, police would have had more information. There are a number of mistakes that happened here. But the fact that police, when they closed the gap and reduced the gap between themselves and Tamir Rice, they had no cover other than the car. So when people look at the video that's being played, that the prosecutor, Matt Meyer, is trying to show folks as to why there was no indictment here, it's absurd because the officer is shooting Tamir Rice, a citizen, and then he's running to the back of his car for cover. It's reversed. If they had had distance and had some sort of cover between themselves and Tamir Rice, he would have never had to go on. The officer, the rookie, would not have felt compelled, would not have felt that he was placed into a position of having to produce his gun and fire it because the distance and the gap in the cover would have made this whole thing slow down. That's where the negligence is. That's what the prosecutors aren't talking about. There's another part of this that I want to make sure I hammer home. Prosecutors introduced experts, so-called experts, to a grand jury to evaluate a video. The problem with that is a grand jury is not the proper place to have any expert because there's no cross-examination of the expert to test their theory. So the grand jurors, who are lay people, are believing the prosecutor's experts, but there's nobody on the other side of this to challenge what that expert is coming up with for opinions. This is just this is absurd.
Interesting. So where do you think where do you think race comes into this? I mean, just based on your experience with 20 years on the police force, where does, because there are a lot of people that see the racial undertones of this, and I'm curious to know from your perspective, how do you think things might have played out if Tamir Rice had not been black?
The 1970 Kerner report, which is a commissioned report, I suggest everyone look it up. 1970 KERNER Commission report. It stated in this report that there were two nations that we were starting to find ourselves in, one black, one white. And within these two nations, the Kerner report says that the police in 1970 were being instructed as a policy, practice, and custom to stop coercing black citizens by doing all types of nasty things to us, lynching us, all those nasty things that happened that we know about throughout history that still happen today. But the Kerner report also said the police were by design meant to control Negroes specifically. So here we have in 2015 a 12-year-old child that is not doing anything wrong. Who is protecting Tamir Rice's rights? How is Tamir Rice's constitutional protections being observed by the police if they show up and gun him down, and then the prosecutors, instead of presenting evidence as is and getting a second-degree indictment against this guy and other people who assisted in the negligence here, they're letting someone go. And this is very explosive. This is a child. He's innocent. He wasn't doing anything wrong, and yet he's dead today. This is a problem.
Wow. So how would you have prosecuted this? if you were seeking to do the right thing, where would this go if you were the prosecutor and the judge? How would you make this thing kind of play out in
The
court?
issue, the issue is that right now we have a very lopsided justice system. You have the prosecutor that's relying on the police for the information to prosecute the police. That's absurd. If you have the prosecutor that then hires an expert that is assessing the evidence by the police, and that expert is not being challenged by having any cross-examination, but yet and still jurors are listening to this expert, they're believing the expert because they're lay people. And the prosecutor is presenting the expert as the expert without any cross-examination. This is a railroad of justice. And Tamir Rice, the citizen, isn't getting his day in court. His family and his estate aren't getting their day in court because the prosecutors are railroading the system. This has got to stop. There's got to be some sort of independent review in every level of the criminal justice system to stop this type of injustice. Because at this present point, we have too many people that are trying to go and circumvent law, circumvent right. And that has been long-standing against black people, and that's where race comes in. Because white people aren't experiencing equal injustice of the law as the same as black people. And if white people were, they would be up in arms like I am today about what Tamir Rice experienced, and they would look for police officers to be prosecuted.
All right. Well, you know what? You said it all. You threw in some great points and gave people something to think about. And I think that this is food for thought for anybody watching. Anybody who thinks that there's no such thing as good cops, you need to know about guys like Ken Williams, because Ken does care and he's actually fighting to help change the system. So I want to say thank you, Ken. I appreciate your explanation and your breakdown of all this.
Thank you, Doctor.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. This is Mr. Ken Williams. You can find him at KWill. Is it KWillAssociates.com?
KWillServices.com.
KWill Services. Sorry. KWillServices.com. He does a lot of investigation on wrongful death cases and things like that. Is that correct?
That's
Okay. Wrongful death cases. So he's a great resource. Also, if you're looking for a speaker who can come to your organization and talk about these kinds of things, I recommend reaching out to Mr. Williams. I know I reach out to him all the time. I have a lot of respect for everything he brings to the table. All right. So once again, Mr. Ken Williams and me, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. And until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.